So being that we are talking and knowing that there are people listening, I would encourage, if you take anything away from it today, do that. Like take 5 minutes, write a note to somebody in your life, friend, family member, and just tell them thank you. Drop it in the mail. Like, it's hard not to get emotional right now because it just feels so much gratitude in that, like just thinking of all the people in my life. And I encourage everyone, just like, if you take anything from that, this conversation today, just do that one thing and just see how it like causes a slight shift. And again, ounces equal pounds. If you're able to take and implement a lot of these things on a regular basis, you're going to find yourself way happier and the people around you way happier. So be the change. Yeah, be the change that you want to see, for sure.
Out here, the stakes are real. Effective preparation starts with fitness, but it requires so much more. This show explores the tools, knowledge, resilience, and skills needed to be ready when it matters the most. Join me, Rich Froning, as we apply the decades of wisdom I've gained through training and competition to hunting in the backcountry. This is In Pursuit, brought to you by Mountain Ops, in collaboration with Mayhem Hunt. All right, In Pursuit podcast. I'm here, Rich Froning, and Josh Bergeron. Have we established your true name on the podcast yet, I guess?
I thought it was Bird.
Are we going with Bird?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I don't know if that's what we're doing.
No.
All right. Guest, Richard Ryan. You got a long list of things that you do / have done. One of the founders of Black Rifle, or co-founder of Black Rifle, which is pretty awesome. Now doing some media software stuff. You wrote a book, Warrior's Garden.
I did.
I haven't read it yet. Rory was talking a ton about it, and the kind of, I guess, subject is not per se ditching social media, but disconnecting a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
Which we are super passionate about. My daughter is still angry with me. She's 11, and a lot of her friends, of course, have cell phones. And our age right now is 14, and it could be later, but I've told her 14, and she's so mad at me. Like, she's like, my friends, and I'm like, cool.
How old is she?
11.
Oh, wow.
So she's got some time. And, we even limit iPad time to just travel, So, yeah. So, Bird, do you want to give the true intro?
Covered a lot of it.
I did? All right, cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think you covered most of it.
Cool.
I mean, I could say the same thing you just said
fluff it up
in like a bio form, but that would be totally
it'd be
not
it's
worth
not
it.
us.
I would feel weird doing it.
Heck yeah. Well, cool, man. Glad to have you stayed in town, kind of cruising the country.
Yeah. It's been great. Like I stayed at a bison ranch last night.
Yeah.
Lazy G, right down the road and everything. Fellow farmer in the area.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, actually, so our 2 herd bulls came from there.
Really?
Yeah, 2 of our herd bulls and then 4 of our starter heifers came from Lazy G. Really good friends of ours. The kind of the like, poor choice of words, but pioneers in the bison industry in our area. So real big operation.
I mean, if you don't mind me asking, I know this is deviating right off.
No, hey, we're really good at doing that.
Well, why did you go down that route?
This is going to sound really bad because we are on a Meat Eater podcast.
Shameless plug.
I grew up here. My buddy Matt is my best friend. We both grew up here, and we were both firefighters at the time. Or back up, we lived up here, grew up here. We were both worked at the fire department when we were a little bit younger. He, on his off days, raised cattle. I just did odds and end jobs for other guys at the fire department. Well, when we both moved back up here in our own homes outside of our parents' house, we were like, we should get some cattle and, do something so the kids will have something that we can all do together, along the lines of what I think you're preaching in this book is like, get the kids outside, give them something to take care of, and something we can all kind of do as a family. And, in this day and age, life is easy per se, compared to what it used to be. And so we're like, let's get some cows. And while I was reading American Buffalo, Ranella's book about the history of
such a wordsmith.
Yep.
I love listening to him.
And so that book, I was like, let's do bison. And my buddy Matt was like, I don't know anything about bison. I was like, I don't either, but let's do it. It's pretty American. And so the rest is history. Yeah. So we went with bison instead of cattle, which we do now have cattle. Those are my wife's pets on the other side of the street. I don't know if you noticed that, but yeah.
Love it. Yeah, that's actually a perfect segue into the reason for calling the book The Warrior's Garden. For me, I'm big in the world of regenerative agriculture and been trying to go down that path probably the last 5-7 years or so on my farm. From augmenting the soil with biochar, because we're in a Central Texas carrying capacities, I think 1 animal unit per 20 acres.
Okay, yeah. So we're 1.5.
Yeah, so it's like it's not the most facilitating. So how do you improve the quality of the soil and everything? Because there's a saying in regenerative agriculture: it's not how much rain you get, it's how much you keep.
Yeah.
So you really want that healthy soil, and you want to improve it however you can. Specifically around those arid climates, most people don't realize the bulk form of erosion comes from wind erosion. And you do get it from water as well. But when you have, conventional tillage and everything, tilling up the topsoil and everything, you get a good dust storm or something like that coming through. Right, all your nutrients and everything are being blown away. You may get a little bit of rain. You'll develop, specifically where we're at, you'll develop some crust. And so whenever you do get the rain that you need, it sheds into the waterways, and maybe the fertilizer and everything goes into the ocean. You're getting algae blooms and everything. So the best way to kind of build a resilient ecosystem, increase your carrying capacity and everything, roots in the ground. Like I plant like sorghum, Sudan hybrids. Okay. So that's, it's in like that corn style stalk, and you're getting the deep roots in there and everything. I'll have legumes like hairy vetch and whatnot. But again, it's about, taking and improving the soil however you can, because inputs equal outputs. Yep. And so for me, I realized, having built so many companies over the last 20 years, if not optimizing for, exploiting various algorithms. We built a media company for Verizon and Hearst. Within, I think it was 6 months, we had 1 million organic followers. We were kind of the bastard child of this, we'll say, a blue network. We were doing daily editorial news for the Heartland Millennial Mail. Black Rifle Coffee, we did 500 million organic impressions in our first year. I talked to any startup. That's really great. Really great for your bottom line in a lot of ways. Now, it's not to negate the fact that, you have people like Evan and everyone in the company that are just absolute rock stars at what they do.
But you got to get that story to somebody.
Correct. And, even going further back, I built a YouTube app and had it in the App Store 4 years before YouTube did, kind of predating the mobile version of the partner program for content creators and everything. So I've had kind of like that inside look at how, the various mechanisms work. Yep. And fortunately and unfortunately, in hindsight, you're able to see the downstream effects of things like the attention economy. And you'll have a lot of creators out there that'll tell you, social media is bad and everything is, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of good that comes from it too. Yep. So I definitely want to preface that in no way, shape, or form am I telling anybody to abstain from social media. It's just, for me, I found that I had been in the system creating content and having a good time, but, doing these different thought exercises. The person I'm always trying to please is probably me 15, 30, 60 years from now, if I make it that far. And I'm constantly reassessing, that person that it is that I want to become. And I've found, after burning through all these different studies and books on addiction, is really the definition would be sacrificing your long-term goals for short-term gratification. Mm-hmm. And I found that being caught up in this system and everything, there were a lot of misaligned incentives in the world of social media, specifically around that attention economy. And I needed to build up some type of resilience for me, because again, inputs equal outputs. I was talking with a number of people the other day, and it just, kind of came to me. I was like, well, you take and you look at all these different studies. What's arguably the most researched or observed data point out there? And I'll spare you, because people will be like, oh, the placebo effect, right? Because it has to be factored in for most studies. And you could say it's like 2 to 3%, depending on whatever. But what it shows you is that the brain's ability to impact the physiological state is real. It's meaningful. And so if you have these things that are impacting you psychologically in a negative way, what is that 2 to 3% in your life? And how is that compounding over time? How is it, like if you're shooting, you might zero your rifle at 100 yards, but if it's off a little bit at at 500 yards, you're going to miss the target, right?
Incremental.
So for me, I was like, okay, I really need to assess these things. And in the book and everything, I try to make it as stupid simple as possible, putting statistics around different things, but also didn't want people to come away with it thinking well, now I need to buy this quart, I need to buy this thing or whatever it is. It's like, no, it's very, very easy, but it's also really, really hard considering a lot of us.
It's our world.
Yeah, it's our world. And you don't realize how addicted you are, the compulsive behaviors and everything that are developed over time. And
just this. Yeah,
Rory and I were talking about this. Was like, one of the observations that I give is like, just taking going down the road, how many people are on their phone. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not trying to pass judgment here, but the fact of the matter is like, observed like out of 10 people, like 6 or 7 of them were looking at their phone. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you can't go to the grocery store just as an exercise, leave your phone at home. You've been to the grocery store. How many times you know how to get there? Mm-hmm. Oh, somebody's going to call you. You might miss that call. Call them back 30 minutes later. But like, just notice
your wife.
Notice the urge.
Yeah.
Like the pull, the draw, and everything. So, insight is a big component in the book, and just trying to get people to at least turn on the varying systems like screen time and stuff like that. So you can just have an observation of what your consumption looks like and what platforms you're using. If you're looking at Instagram all the time, if you're looking at whatever, first open.
Yeah, that's that screen right there.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah.
There.
And
I hate it.
So well, Apple does a few really interesting statistics too. Is your first open and things like that. So what is the thing that you're looking at? Like you're going to, what's creating that compulsive?
Well,
behavior?
What's crazy too is I'll have my phone in my pocket a bunch, and there'll be sweat. I'll be sweaty, and it'll move around my apps. And I'll notice if I go, like, there's a natural habit to go to one app, and it's usually Instagram or whatever it is. But when it's not there, you have to retrain your brain, and then you don't realize that until that happens, and you're like, it's very eye-opening.
Well, and I think something that you appreciate too. Again, this study gets cited and used in so many different things, but the Stanford Marshmallow study and delayed gratification, specifically as it pertains to friction and your reward systems and everything. And, technology and mobile and social, again, I guess let's break it down here. When you hear the phrase, the attention economy, what does that really mean? Well, early days of social media, it was really expensive to host a viral video, right? Because you get your 100,000, maybe 1 million views on a video, you could go bankrupt paying for the bandwidth to your internet service provider. And then YouTube came out in 2006. You have your Vimeos and stuff like that, but people found that it was like, oh, okay, I can host this for free. I don't have to risk a video going viral and going bankrupt. Paying $100,000 and bandwidth fees and stuff like that. So YouTube really positioned itself really well, short of lawsuits with the DMCA and everything else, and that what arguably led to the pressure in the acquisition by Alphabet. But it's neither here nor there. And the partner program comes around, and around 2012, I think, was open for everybody. And then something happens. You'll hear guys like Cal Newport talk about mobile phone usage around 2010 to 2012 and all these other different things. And while that's true, societally, maybe people were buying iPhones more. It's been about 4 or 5 years since the, iPhone came out at that point. But I would argue that it's the partner program. And that incentivizes people to create and to consume. And then you start seeing the
partner program.
So you make money off of YouTube being a creator, right? Okay. So they give you a revenue share for the ads that are displayed on your channel. And then what happened was
you're in that.
I know. I was just
So creators essentially become algorithmic optimizers in that sense. So you're gonna find that there's certain things that you do that are gonna get people to click, that's going to get people to stay. And it's fascinating to watch how the algorithms evolve over time. And I know a lot of people use that term very loosely, but essentially just an algorithm is various machine learning weights that optimize for a desired outcome, and whatever that is. And so being that you are the product as the consumer, and again, what does that mean? The platform is the business that is selling your attention to the customer, the advertiser. And the more of your attention that they have, the more there is to sell to those people. And so the incentive for them is to keep you on platform as long as possible. And I don't think that, Mark Zuckerberg or Sundar or any of these other guys are sitting on a throne somewhere going like, how do we suck people in? I think it's just the byproduct of optimizing for that desired outcome. And, and again, if we don't really have these conversations about it, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. And so you found over the last 13 years or so that content in itself has evolved, and so are those algorithms. So as an example, around 2012, I would say the click-through rate optimization was the primary weight at that point in time. So it's like, how catchy can you be with your titles and your thumbnails and everything? And what they found was when people would click through, they would just be baited in or clickbaited. There'd be a high bounce rate. So if you're an algorithm, how do you want to curb that behavior? Because you want people on platform so you can serve them more ads. Well, retention. So you put a higher weight on retention. So video game Let's Players, like they became really big and started dominated search and related on YouTube. And now you see podcasts and long form content and everything. It's because it keeps people on platform longer. And it's not to say that that's a bad thing. But again, it's an observation that you need to be aware of, because one of the examples that I give in the book is like, if your value is very subjective at the end of the day, but if you wanted a cooking tutorial or just how do I make this recipe, you're going to go to a platform and maybe expect a TikTok style video of give me all the value that I need. But if you go maybe to a YouTube, it's 20 minutes, somebody telling you about their day and their life. And maybe you want that, parasocial relationship with that person. But I would argue most people want that value. But the byproduct of watch time on platform as the incentive mechanism means that you're being sucked into this thing. And I know it's a very long-winded way to get around to, but explaining these minutes add up over time. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not doing the work and looking at the things that you value in your life, what is the thing that you want to spend more time with your children? Do you want to, spend more time hunting? Because I would argue, like, if you've ever been injured or sick, like, it's very humbling to be in a hospital bed or whatever it is. You find out really, really quick what the important things in life are, right? And I would argue, and I encourage people to do these kind of like deathbed, exercises or giving advice to a younger version of yourself, where you really assess those things. And I would argue that once you start accumulating, weeks, months, years of time on Instagram, when it's all said and done, because being 80, 90 years old isn't given to us. It's not.
You're spending 4 hours, 5 hours a day on your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Adds up every day.
Ounces equal pounds, right? And so, and again, I'm not saying abstain.
Yep.
I'm saying just do the work, understand what you really, really care about. Don't be passive in that. And there's other areas and aspects within there, I think, that you definitely would appreciate as an athlete, because again, these systems are meant to remove friction and create compulsion and stuff like that. So you're constantly going back for and checking it. And I would argue that friction or effort, specifically around that Stanford marshmallow study and stuff, and delayed gratification, as an athlete, friction is a good thing, right? You want friction over a period of time, so you build up resilience. And for gratification and stuff like that, friction and effort leads to greater reward. And by removing all of that, your dopaminergic system, as Dr. Anna Lemke would put it, the pain seesaw is completely imbalanced. You've reduced all the friction. Everything's so easy that it's not gratifying anymore.
Yep.
And so your pain goes up.
Yeah.
So you find maybe societally, and again, it's really hard to draw causal, implications around saying that the phone or social media, but there's definitely correlating statistics around, eating disorders, both among male and female, depression, suicide rates, and stuff like that. So, for me, this was very much my anecdotal journey in trying to define a system that didn't really cost any money, and trying to deviate from my short-term gratification to align my long-term goals and everything. So that's my spiel in a lot of ways.
That's awesome. No, I mean, I think it ties into a lot of why I think what originally kind of drew me, well, there's a couple things that drew me into hunting, but that was the disconnect, right? You didn't even have an option because there was no service, right? And so you're like, oh, I can survive. I'd have a Garmin InReach that I could reach out to my wife and just say, hey, I'm alive. But, the first couple places we went, there was zero cell phone service, like zero anywhere we went. And you'd come home and you just feel better, like more clear, and then you get right back in the
present.
Yeah. And so I think that was one of the huge draws for me in hunting. Obviously, the competition side of it, I've stated multiple times, but just that connection and that clear, and just like, oh, there is life outside that thing, right?
Yeah, I love it. And the thing is again, for me, I was really trying to figure out like these needle movers, and the insight, the assessment of, really understanding what I wanted out of life and the things that I value, and establishing those boundaries. Like, there are some positive needle movers. Again, these things, they don't really cost anything, or they can, depending on what works for you. But I really appreciate that. I think you would too, is like, and I give the case study as CrossFit as an example. Community, if you look at the blue zones, are you familiar with that? With like, centenarians and stuff like that. So it's like, if you look at that, community is such a huge component to it. And if you take the statistics around CrossFit versus Globo Gym and the retention rate of a member, it totally makes sense. It's like, yes, CrossFit as a discipline, there may be pros and cons for depending on the athlete and everything, but you could easily argue that the community is the thing.
It's the thing. Well, that's what we've talked about for a while.
And I think that's lacking. I think the value proposition with social media was that we would be social and we would engage and interact in this, and again, we
larger community.
Yeah. And what's happened is, again, maybe no fault of one person, but misaligned incentives have led to what's the thing that's going to keep people in longer. You're going to tap into a fight or flight response, maybe something that's like, the twig snapping in the savannah, that really ingrained genetic, like fight or flight thing that's going to just really make you angry, really make you, excited or whatever it is. And so people are constantly in these states, and, you could argue that that's one of the things that's maybe led to the polarization in politics and all these other different things.
Well, just a move from center.
Yes.
Regardless of what you believe, everybody's no longer there. You can't be center anymore. You have to be one way or the other. And opposites.
That's the thing, is like, so I would argue that there's still a lot of people there, if not the majority of people.
But a loud minority.
But it's kind of like the political system in the U.S. where you have the primaries, the 5% of the polarized side of each party, which that are participating, and they're the ones nominating the extreme candidates or whatever they are, and those are the things that get algorithmic preference because it's what excites people, and it goes up in the headlines,
comments, and it gets clicks, and it gets views.
And so, again, how do you evolve from this? I don't know until we fundamentally reshape social media and those systems. I think people are going to have to do the work themselves, still use it as a tool and everything. And again, the community component, I think, is so important for people to get out there, find something, try something hard, add that friction layer. And, I hear everyone, if it's not these days, it's jiu-jitsu and archery.
Jiu-jitsu, archery, and ultra marathons.
That's it. That's
all you can do.
But, adding that friction level with your consumption, adding the community component to it. And I will say this is very, very important to me at this point in time. And the thing that I felt was I I really didn't want to acknowledge it. It's hard not to get emotional here because gratitude was without a doubt the biggest needle mover for me.
That's great.
And I found that, again, inputs equal outputs. I found that I've needed to sever certain relationships in my life because and again, everyone has their own things that they're dealing with and everything, but there are some people that are constant pessimists, and I am very much gasoline on a fire. So whatever I'm around, I'm an amplifier for. Like I tell people I'm a subject matter enthusiast. I love being around people who are passionate about what they're doing and building, and just generally optimistic people. And I thrive around those people. And that whole state, in the last 2-3 years, I was like, I need to figure this thing out, because there's clearly a lot of research around gratitude. And so, about a ton of gratitude journals. There's actually one in the back of the book. I do a 30-day assessment for people that you can take, and you can monitor your consumption as far as and you can download all this stuff for free too if you want. Like I'm not trying to hog books here, but it's a 30-day exercise and gratitude journaling and everything, because that was such a huge needle mover for me. And I'll tell you a little anecdotal experience in that, and like trying to read all this research around it. You have varying religion or religious gratitude exercises, either giving thanks before a meal, thanks before you go to sleep or when you wake up. There's different events that happen. And for me, I was like, how do I introduce gratitude in a way that doesn't become, systematically, just watered down?
Yeah, check a box.
Yeah, exactly. So I tried to find ways to introduce inconvenient gratitude. And so one of the things I would do is, before I get in my truck, I would take 2-3 minutes and I would say, I'm grateful that I have reliable transportation. Sure. I have fuel to get where I'm going. I have an opportunity to see my friends, go to this business meeting, whatever it is. I am extremely fortunate. And I found that this weird thing happened, this weird psychological shift, this main character syndrome complex, whatever you want to call it, me being in traffic. We were talking about having ADD earlier. I have to do certain things whenever I'm driving. So if I get in traffic, I have to listen to a podcast or something talking. I can't listen to music because music has a rhythm. And if I get out of that rhythm, I start getting anxious, stopping and going in the traffic. And I'm like, crap, the construction is going to make me late. And it's like, why me, And this shift started happening, and it just completely blew me away. I started noticing the people working construction, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this
out there in 100-degree heat.
No, this guy has a job. Yeah. He's providing for his family. He's improving my community. He's making my community better. And all of a sudden I start feeling more a part of this thing, that we live in society and everything. And again, I know it sounds cheesy to a lot, but once you start brute forcing this behavior, you start seeing inputs equal outputs. Yeah. And it was such a catalyst for me that I was like, okay, I have to add this section into the book, because again, it all makes sense when you dovetail in the placebo effect and just psychologically how your brain's ability to impact your physiological state is. Yeah. And so for me, I just, kind of tried defining and outlining these just different systems and processes that work for me.
I mean, that parallels a lot of obviously the real world stuff is huge, but if anybody's been on a Western hunt or a multi-day Western hunt, I'm not super familiar with your hunting background. Have you been on any?
So I filmed hunting shows. Okay,
that counts, Scott. Right?
But I never really out short of bird hunting. Yeah, I just really went deer hunting for the first time a year or two ago. Yeah. And so,
but you filmed some hunts.
A lot,
like Western hunts.
Alaska.
So it's an emotional roller coaster
for sure.
And so a lot of this could be used in that, because there are a lot of guys, and we've fallen down that trap of you just get, there's such highs and lows while you're hunting, we're going to see something, you know, like you got the excitement of the trip, then you get there, and then first day is good, second day is good, you don't start to see anything, maybe third day you start to crash a little bit, and then you have an encounter, and then you crash, you mess it up. Like, it's such an emotional roller coaster. But there's so many things that you could use a lot of these techniques to like introduce some gratitude in there.
You're definitely, I mean, you're outlining the delayed gratification, right? And and arguably the journey makes the destination that much better. And don't get me wrong, if you're trying to fill the freezer, you go out day
First
one,
day would be great.
It would be great, right? But in a lot of ways, it's
not as much fun, for sure.
And it's the experience, like especially if you're in a camp with friends, and it's just that's what life's about.
Yeah, and that's what I talk a ton about hunting with other people. It's just way more fun. But I think people build up these expectations. Oh, it's the only week I have off from work. I did all this e-scouting. I'm away from my family. There's these things that can creep in, right? And self-doubt or whatever is going to creep in. And so I think having some of these tools to just be like, hey, I get to be out here. How many other people that I know are sitting back there? Or, I get to these, years ago, hundreds of years ago, these acres were set aside that I could go hunt these and those types of things. You could introduce some of that stuff, and maybe we'll try some of these techniques.
Well, what you just said, it's a different perspective, right? So when you're thankful and when you display gratitude, it brings you to a place where your perspective is completely different.
For sure.
Few years ago, I went to Haiti. Haiti's not a great place. I don't even think you can still go to Haiti.
Really?
But you get in, and man, it's terrible. Like, the people hate you. Everything about it is bad, right? There's nothing good to eat, no air conditioning, nothing. Like, it's a bad place. Smells, but
you're really selling it.
Yeah. Well, but so when I was in it, I had one perspective of it. But then we took a trip to the other side of the mountain, and you get on top of the mountain and you see down on Haiti. And the island actually looks completely different than when you're in it, right? Like, the island's tropical, it's beautiful.
Albany, New York.
Yeah, but that's what gratitude does to anybody's life. Like, it gives you a different perspective, right? Because we all get in our own thoughts, right? And you can't. And I think, honestly, that's what probably social media does a lot of times. It lets you. People only post their highlights, right? So it gives you a perspective of maybe my life isn't as good as their life.
Right. Yeah, you get that constant comparison.
Yeah. So whereas if you do have this life of gratitude, it just gives you a different perspective of, just like you just said, right? Like, even the fact that you can just go out for a week, you're not working, you're in nature, it's awesome.
Yep.
If you don't kill, that's part of it, right? But if you're thankful that you can even get that, because like I've said, like, Louisiana, people don't go out west to hunt at all. Just to say, man, I'm thankful I have this opportunity. It changes kind of everything for you.
Well, I'd be curious. Like, I mean, you're the elite of the elite, right?
Formally, maybe.
Well, still, it doesn't negate the fact that you had some systems, whether or not they were conscious or subconscious, right? And so the gratitude component is just a psychological hack that I was trying to introduce to move the needle in the way that I needed it to go.
Yeah.
Like, for you, like, you don't become the 1% of the 1% without some type of psychological edge. Is there anything that you used or you were mindful of?
I mean, in the last couple of years, coming to, really think about what I was doing at different times, I think, obviously genetics plays into it, right? The upbringing that I was brought up in, my family was uber competitive. Everything we did was a competition. I'm just one side of my family. There's 32 of us, first cousins, and 25 are boys. Everything I did was a competition, right? There's definitely some substance abuse. Biologically, we've come to find that substance abuse does run in families, and I think that's my substance abuse is working out. Like, these guys could probably attest to it. Like, it is what it is. I turned it into something positive for sure. And then, man, my faith, I competed and failed. I call a failure. I got second. Other people would be like, that's great. For me, it was a failure, right? And what I'd kind of determined through stepping back and really looking at it from a faith perspective of, I let whatever I was doing, as a kid, and I don't blame my cousins, my aunts and uncles, parents, or anything. Like I put my self-worth in if I was the most dominant of the cousins or whatever I was doing, baseball, high school baseball. From there it was firefighting, and we did this tough challenge, but being a firefighter, doing some travel like flag football type stuff. And then CrossFit came along, right? And then when you have these failures, you're like, oh man, I let my identity become whatever I was doing versus who I am in my faith. And, I'm not unashamed to say that my faith is in Christ. And that's what, when I had the shift of competing for gratification for myself or whatever I was doing, or to make people proud, to, all right, I've been given these talents, these gifts, this upbringing, whatever, to glorify Christ. For me, there was just a huge shift, and it was, I am still the most competitive person you've ever met. Like I hate losing. That's not going away. But I knew that my identity wasn't tied up in, or my self-worth wasn't tied up in who I was as a competitor. And that, for me, was a huge shift. And then I could compete from a different spot of saying, all right, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to train, and I'm going to, I still want to win. Every day I wake up, I want to be the fittest man on earth. Like I have to put in the time, put in the work, obsess about it, right? And I know that, if I lose, I'm going to be pissed off for, some time, but I can get over it. Because that first time when I got second, I was in a funk for months, and, just found, I grew up in a faith family, but it was more of somebody else's faith. It was never my own personal, what it had done for me or how I could express that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of parallels with a lot of people in society. You have with our coffee company and everything, we have a lot of veterans transitioning from their time in service into civilian life. There's a lot of people, even as much as I hate to say it, content creators. Mm-hmm. Like I know a lot of people, because I've been in it for so long, to include me. And again, this is not me like trying to grandstand here or anything, but like one of my channels has like 2.73 million subscribers, right? And there's something that happens to you when you're on a pedestal, where you're putting some of your worth, if not all of your worth, in the thing that is getting attention from those people. And so, I'm getting 10 million, 30 million, 40 million views. And I never really wanted to be put in a box. That's why I personally suck at social media so much, because I don't want to be known as the gun guy on YouTube. I don't want to be known as the software developer or the anarchist or this thing or that or whatever, because I'm a pretty complicated dude. Like the regenerative agriculture world, I've been building stuff for small farmers and stuff. Yeah.
It's pretty complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, doing stuff in robotics and stuff now and everything, but it's like, I've seen the rise and the fall of a lot of content creators too. And it is tragic to see somebody put their self-worth in really other people's affirmation. And I think that you really, really like owe it to yourself, especially in this digital age, to do the work, figure out again those long-term goals, and that will help you establish. And that's, I never knew my father, and so I felt like here we are unpacking a bunch of stuff on a podcast. But I found that psychologically speaking, one of the reasons that made me an overperformer and everything that I did, that's exactly it. I was trying to approve a male figure in my life, or get the affirmation from them. So whether it was working construction, whether it was media executives, even, my business partners and stuff like that, there was a subconscious thing that I was always trying to prove myself. And then, you put that catalyst with social media. And again, I know to the average person, this is going to sound weird, but like when you're getting millions and millions of views, I just walked away from it. I talk about a little bit in the book, in that, I didn't want to make a big to go away video or anything like that. And, I understand why people do that and everything. But for me, it felt like if I did that, for me personally, it was like a heroin junkie going, I'm going to do an epic dose and then I'm going to rehab. I was like, no, I'm just like, if I really do want to step away from it and like only create content whenever I want to create content just for the sake of doing a cool video for whatever it is, then that's what I'm going to do. And I did, and it sucks, man. Like you see how different people treat you when you're not getting views or the things that you're not invited to.
They
and
can't
again,
get anything from you.
Yeah, but again, if my self-worth was put into that, and again, that's kind of how I found that, that psychological hack, and that I'm trying to please myself 15, 30 years from now, because that's the person I need to be true to. Is that person going to look back, having kids and everything? Am I doing them a disservice in the future and stuff like that? And that's the person I'm trying to be true to. I just feel like, this whole process was something that I feel like a lot of people could benefit from. And if we're ultimately going to shift the things that we need to shift, I think it starts at an individual level. Mm-hmm. And then once we, build up at a community level and everything, you'll start seeing ounces equal pounds in society. And I am long community. I think that so many people are hungry right now for it.
Face to face, being a part of something.
Be it board game clubs to CrossFit, whatever. Yeah. I feel like if there's not a resurgence already coming, there is a tsunami coming with that for sure.
Yeah. I didn't tell you this the other day. Violet, my youngest, she's 7, super inquisitive always. She's like, Dad, did you grow up wanting to be a YouTuber? That hurt me. I was like, 1, I'm not a YouTuber. 2,
YouTube wasn't
around.
A thing.
Yeah. What were you going to say? Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, I think even what you just said, there's plenty of people in the world, I would say most people, who don't think 30 years from now, who's the person that I want to be, right? And if you have that and it drives your life, then it's completely different, right? Or even sitting with your family and having like a mission statement or whatever, say, hey, our family is this. You know what I mean? Like my past, we've always taught people to do that. But of course, like if you have the end goal in mind, I know you talked about not having a dad, which probably also shapes how you want to be a dad, right? And then even that, once you have kids, then along that journey is like, okay, I know this is the kind of dad I want to be, and that helps you along the way. Whereas people who don't have a dad, that's how you get sucked. I know, like we talked about the Dale Earnhardt documentary, and you get sucked into just how your dad was because you don't have that full outlook on your life, which is really cool to have. But with that, I know you talked about some things, but what about just total detox, right? Like we talked about hunting, spending time away. Even you touched on archery, which I think a lot of times that's why people like archery, because even if it's just for that 20 seconds before you release or before you punch your trigger, like all your focus is literally just on one thing. Or even when we had Joel here, then, like all your focus is just on the release and all that. So just because the reality is maybe most hunters, like it's great to have that detox, but probably the amount of times you spend in the woods is not enough for the year, right? You have December to the end of August. So what do you do in that time that's also just practical?
So going through most of the research, specifically Dr. Anna Lemke and some of these other studies would say 30 to 40 days is a typical kind of detox duration before you reset your dopaminergic system to baseline. So you'll have to go through the withdrawal phase of
just like any other addiction.
Correct. And you don't realize the impulse of that. That's exactly it.
Text.
Yeah, it's constantly happening. So that's context switching, right? Yeah. For me, that's why I was so stoked that we were doing this morning, because I am cognitively like A game first thing in the morning. About 2-3 o'clock, I have so much cognitive atrophy from just context switching, all the different things, little conversations that come up and everything. But it again, this is one of those things that's very, very hard to do a complete detox with, because it's so ingrained in our society in so many different ways. If you can, that's awesome.
Well, and even say if you run a business, like it's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to have it.
So I think you would have to establish some very clear boundaries and what that's going to look like in your quote unquote detox phase. Again, this is where it gets kind of gray depending on the person. It may mean, and again, I know this is a luxury, but if you can get a second phone, I found that there are a number of ways to introduce friction. So I removed social media from my mobile app, or I'd only do it from the desktop. Now, again, this is one of those frustrating things where I'm going to deviate here a little bit, but again, looking at the various ways that they distribute content and the preferential treatment based off of the metadata in the post. So if it came from desktop versus mobile, what type of device it is. Even to this point, I have, I think, a couple hundred AI influencers that I've been building over the last 2 years. And I randomize the metadata. So it's like an iPhone or a Galaxy, different focal lengths, and I see how it impacts the distribution on it. So I know that, it's going to be hard for people not to upload on a mobile device. So if you can get an extra one, that'd be great. Separate it from your personal line, right? And I put mine in grayscale mode. I put a matte filter on it so it looks like an e-ink. There's all these different ways to introduce friction. If you can do a detox, that is really the way to reset the dopaminergic threshold, or your baseline in that sense. 30 to 40 days is historically what it takes. It could be longer depending on your level of addiction or compulsion. And again, these are the things that I definitely want to emphasize is, if you have a real problem, you should seek professional help.
How do you know if you have a real problem?
Well, I mean, man, this is such a loaded, because the research and everything we were going through, I was fortunate enough to be able to hire some, people to help out, as far as researchers and everything were concerned. But from pornography to, just social media and people, just their motivation in life and all these different things. It's it's very hard. You might need somebody to help you objectively assess your issues. So I would say you might want to seek professional help if you find that you can't go through a detox phase. Once you've established some clear boundaries, maybe it is you need some actual guidance from somebody, or even at some point, maybe even a medical intervention in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I know for me, I can't have Twitter on my phone.
Yeah.
So I don't do Twitter at all. And then
I got really bad during the election on Twitter.
Yeah.
Now I don't ever go to Twitter. X.
Yeah.
X. Yeah. Yeah. Nor I don't have TikTok because I'm too old.
Yeah, me too.
And then really my morning routine is I do pick up my phone just because first thing I do is go to the bathroom.
Yep.
But after that, I do try to sit.
Where's your phone where you're sleeping?
Well, that's tricky. So it is next to me because I use the noise.
So
but I don't. So my phone goes do not disturb at 8:00.
Yeah.
So I really from 8 on.
But you're still checking it.
No, I'm not.
Huh? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, it's usually up.
Mine, I don't keep it by the bed. I keep it in the
But I do
bathroom.
just for the noise.
All right. Well, I can help you solve that problem then.
Can you help my wife
yeah.
be able to turn the TV off? Because that's why I need the noise.
So growing up here in Tennessee, I developed a very bad habit. We didn't have central heat and air. And so I had a box fan in my bedroom
Man, how
window.
old are you?
Yeah, right. I had
It's
a
like before electricity.
no, we had electricity. It's just like we didn't want for anything, but we weren't,
Because you're saving money on the electric bill.
Yeah. So I had a box fan growing up, and that is something that carried through adulthood. So like whenever I was doing media and everything, my producers, anytime we'd travel, I would have them get a box fan at Walmart and have it in my hotel room. Or then when Amazon came around, I would just Amazon one. And there's a company, I have no affiliation with, but Snooze. They're like about this big, and they're a mechanical white noise machine that's a fan.
We need one for hunting.
I can't do iPhones because the digital
has a loop,
frequency has
figure out the loop.
That is exactly it.
Same damn way.
That's
the same
so
way.
frustrating.
As soon as I hear the loop, I can't unhear the loop.
I wake up.
Yep.
And so,
Same way.
So the short term, if for some reason I forget my snooze because it'll fit in a backpack. Super great.
I'm going to Amazon.
Yeah,
right
get
now
it.
on my phone.
Get it. The hack for that is you can, if you have YouTube Premium, there's creators who have recorded
like hours
a fan for like 8-10 hours, and I just download that video.
Oh, because then there's no loop.
That's exactly it.
All right.
Yeah. So I guess I'm digressing so much here.
No, I'm in. I like this digress.
Yeah. I don't even know where I was going while I was bringing up the fan situation. Oh, your bedside table. So for me, I think a really meaningful friction point for people specifically around the home is taking and having a charge station by the front door for your phone, and you plug it in when you get home. And so you can hear if you get a phone call or a text message, if you're worried about emergencies or something like that, because everybody uses that excuse. But I think you'll find more often than not when you're sitting on the couch watching TV or eating dinner, you're checking your phone. And again, ounces equal pounds. If you can start to remove that, you're going to notice a withdrawal phase. Yeah. Because that compulsion's kind of going away and everything. And again, everybody's circumstances are different. I'm not trying to tell people they have to abstain, but like if you can get it out of the bedroom, I think a lot of the sleep scientists will even tell you that is a way better way to get deep sleep. Say what you want about 8 Sleep. I'm not the biggest fan of subscription 8 Sleep.
Oh yeah.
Subscription furniture,
Sleep, yeah.
But if you have a chili pad or something like that,
they're awesome.
They're awesome. Yeah.
Cooling your bed. Yeah.
I had one leak.
So I have in my camper right now, I have a chili pad.
Yeah.
Because it's like a twin mattress, and 8 Sleep doesn't have it. But, optimize your sleep. For me, I prioritize certain things, right? So sleep's number one. Fitness and diets underneath that, of course, relationships and everything else, but introduce friction to your consumed experience. That's the only thing I would say is like, if you're doing the work and you establish those boundaries, or the things that you value or you want out of life, you should be able to objectively say that's a problem if it is or it isn't,
Yeah.
About 3 or 4 years ago, no phone by the bed. I did it in the bathroom, but now it's like underneath the bed, and I don't even. It's not a problem whatsoever. And then one thing I did was if I was going to use my phone, I put it on the counter by the fridge right there. So you're like awkwardly you're on your phone,
yeah,
and you're standing, and it stays right there after like 4 o'clock. And that was an eye opener. And I go through phases where I'm like, oh crap, I got to get back to doing that, because it has started leaking. We've had a lot of stuff going on in the background in the last couple months, but that's something talking. I'm like, I need to get back to that.
I would say as an athlete, that's a competitive edge too.
Yeah,
right?
Just stays
because your focus, like just think about that from an athlete's perspective. If your focus has shifted any during some type of training protocol, like you're not giving it everything that you need.
Right. So yeah, that's a good way to look at it. But yeah, you have that one spot where your phone stays.
Yeah.
And it's not a comfortable spot. It's not like uncomfortable, but I have to be standing, and it stays right there on the thing, on the counter. And so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So you say you have you like the idea of mission statements. If you don't mind me asking, like, do you have like what are some mission statements? Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So my software company or my incubator or whatever is Build Like Humanity depends on it. Mm-hmm. So everything that we do when we're building products is focused on these are the things that we feel are dire importance. Like, so one of the things we've been building is trying to help small farmers compete with big ag scale. We could get into that if you wanted to, but I'm curious if you have any mission statements or.
Yeah, I think just more so words, like, and Rich can share even like mayhem stuff, but I mean, for our family, like grateful is one of them, just because I think that it offsets plenty of things, like even you read the Bible, there's plenty of verses about thankfulness and how you should like enter his gates with praise and things like that. So I think if it's that important, if that's how you enter, then there's probably something to it. So my kids definitely do not live by that often, but and
They'll come back to it.
Yeah. And I try to practice it. Like, even like, to be honest, like there's times when I've like gone to Rich and said, hey dude, like, thanks for the opportunity. And it's probably a bit awkward because most people don't act that way. But like I worked at a church for 20 years. So it was more practice in that setting. But to me, if you do that to your employer or anyone, for one, it lets them know that you are at least thankful for an opportunity. Right. And then in my mind, it keeps my perspective the right way, because anybody's replaceable, even in a company, right? So if you're thankful just for an opportunity or taking a chance on me or anything like that, then that lets them know that I have the right perspective. And honestly, I'm not full of myself. Like if I'm thankful, then it also keeps me humble.
Yeah.
So that is one thing we try to practice.
Be the change that you want to be. And I think you're doing that, right? Because everybody wants to work with people that enjoy what they do. And, I think that a lot of companies will tell you they take out, or, the few employees, they give them the opportunity. Like they'll even say like the COVID kind of like, hey, we'll, give you, Coinbase was a great example where it's like, hey, if you want to resign, we'll give you a comp package of like 3 months or something like that for the people who didn't like Brian Armstrong's stance on, hey, look, we're focused on crypto and, global infrastructure, like the new era of payment mechanisms and empowering the individual and everything else. And we're not, we don't have any other focus ideologically or, whatever things that you participate in outside of, we support you having and exercising your free speech and whatever it is that you're passionate about, but we're not going to do it. And people didn't like that within the company. And so you could say that there's a level of toxic behavior or people that just aren't grateful for whatever it is. And if you trim that fat, I think you'll find more often than not, historically, a lot of these companies have been better for that. Yep. Give them the comp package to exit, and then you'll find that you have a lot more happy employees. And then I put it back on myself. It's like, am I being the employee that I want to work with? And I agree with you there. That gratitude, like, hey, thanks, Rich. I appreciate you having me on today. And like
and not only that, but one thing we also put in place was even writing it. So even like thank you notes was a big deal, which
huge.
It's because if you take the time to write it, it's even like longer. Says more. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which we haven't really put in place at Mayhem yet. But like I got a thank you note for one of a guy who volunteered with me at the church. He like mailed it to me, and like I am not a words of affirmation person whatsoever, so even to be that way is a stretch, but I know what it does for me. But even to hear those things, even though I'm not words of affirmation, like it still does like you want to know you made a difference in people's lives at the end of the day, right? So I think just things like that does go a long way, no matter whatever person you are. No, however awkward it is to say, hear anything, like it's just a good practice.
Well, I mean, I
to
agree.
Say and also to receive.
So being that we are talking and knowing that there are people listening, I would encourage, if you take anything away from it today, do that. Like take 5 minutes, write a note to somebody in your life, friend, family member, and just tell them thank you. Drop it in the mail. Like it's hard not to get emotional right now because it just feels so much gratitude in that, like just thinking of all the people in my life. And I encourage everyone, just like, if you take anything from that, this conversation today, just do that one thing and just see how it like causes a slight shift. And again, ounces equal pounds. If you're able to take and implement a lot of these things on a regular basis, you're going to find yourself way happier and the people around you way happier. So be the change.
More present too.
Yeah. Be the change that you want to see for sure.
I didn't even know how to ask him for his one takeaway. That's usually like the end. I'm like, hey, what's your one takeaway? There it is, gratitude. Yeah, man, I think a lot of this is, we haven't talked a ton about hunting and how it applies, but man, anybody who's been out west or even gone on a whitetail or any type of hunt that you're in the woods for a long day or multiple days and you start.
In fact, sitting on a deer stand all day is harder, right?
It's way.
It's not physically.
I'm just kidding.
Not physically.
We have this.
But for the detox,
no, I agree.
The detox part of it, it is harder because you're just sitting there doing nothing. Whereas at least Western, you are walking and things, so it's a bit easier because you're going somewhere.
Yeah, we have this discussion because we have a buddy that's a hardcore whitetail guy, and he says it's harder than hunting out west.
The detox part, I will say, is
you can't just sitting there all
is harder.
I will say, like me and Scott hunted a lot last year together, and we were in the same tree. That was fine.
Yeah.
Like if you got one other person, man, I lose my mind when I'm sitting by myself.
Yeah.
Lose
and
my
like in
mind.
a tree stand, who's got a squirrel over here just barking at you the whole time.
Nothing. Yep. So man, I think there's so many parallels of one being disconnected, but also just the what you were saying with the gratitude of, hey man, I get to be out here. I get to experience this with buddies or whatever you're doing, even if it is solo and it's something you want to do, you're checking something off a bucket list, whatever it is. But man, there's just so many things to be grateful for in those situations where you get so singular focused, or somebody like me that is so goal or not. I don't like goals per se. I don't have a 6-month goal, but I have targets, right?
Yeah.
And when I'm hunting, obviously the target is to get something. And so when things aren't going the way you want them to go, there's things that you can be grateful for in those moments, for sure. Yeah. What do you're traveling around the U.S. right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I was going from Texas to Georgia, South Carolina, headed to Indiana today, and then I'll head to Missouri and maybe Well, this is that time of year where I'm trying to prioritize stopping and seeing people and everything. I've been doing some stuff with the Kansas City Cattle Company, and I love stopping at small farms. We were talking about Harvest Host earlier.
Harvest Host,
yeah. So one of the things I've been working on is how do I create transparency in supply chain to help smaller farmers compete with big ag at scale, because you're probably familiar with, but the average person might not realize
such a pain.
The nomenclature around food
FDA
so like you hear grass fed and you're like,
USDA.
oh, I'm doing a good thing, but it could be an animal on a feedlot in a 15 by 15
grass
stall
fed.
And they dump truck.
Grass finished, grass fed, grass finished, grain finished.
So one of the things I've been working on, and again, I'll burn through this really fast because we're probably limited on time. I don't know what your schedule is, but military working dogs, they used to be euthanized when they were retired because they were classified as military equipment. Then Robbie's Law was enacted, which allowed them to be adopted out by nonprofits, civilians, and other government organizations. But there's inherent challenges around military working dogs, and that they have specific skills that aren't necessarily conducive to home life with children and stuff like that. And so Mike Ritland started the Warrior Dog Foundation, and he's a buddy of mine. And I was like, okay, I'm wanting to build this tech stack that builds a more meaningful relationship between an organization and an end user through transparency. And so I put RFIDs in the collars of all the dogs and cameras in the stalls and throughout the facility. So a person could sponsor 1 dog, 2 dogs, or 3 dogs, whatever, and it automates a media feed so that they can see that dog's retirement. And it helps, I think, build a more meaningful relationship between the org and the sponsors, so that, there are organizations out there that do fantastic work. St. Jude, great example. But when you give them $100 a year, it's like, I trust that they're going to, and there's really not a lot of transparency. You can audit the org and everything, but I'm a big proponent of like trying to figure out solutions to these really, really big problems. And I think that the small farmer is just getting decimated by, be it you say the processors and everything out there or whatever. And so I was trying to figure out a way where states like Tennessee or Texas that have these cottage food laws and stuff like that, selling direct to consumer, or if they do go the route of having an FDA inspector on hand and everything, ways that we can integrate RFIDs or tracking, like my chickens. I have, you'll when you get a carton of my eggs, it'll have the date and the nest box on it.
Oh, nice.
And so when you hit the QR code, there's cameras everywhere. So you'll see the eggs that day in that nest box rolling back.
That's crazy.
So it's just transparency, right? You're seeing the life cycle of that animal grazing out. Kansas City Cattle Company, you're seeing like these Wagyu cows out in pasture roaming around and everything.
Not feedlot and not.
That's exactly it. And so if a small farmer wants to sell their stuff at a premium, there is that transparency in that. And food waste is a massive problem in the U.S. Over 60% of food goes to waste. So how do you tackle that along with trying to help the small farmer? For me, I'm like, okay, let's elicit an emotional response. You guys being hunters, you're very connected with your food. Well, the average person buying from a producer, it's like you're not seeing the slaughter process. You're not seeing all that. So if we can show a calving process all the way through the slaughter process, I think it'll elicit emotional response. Not everybody's going to want to see it, but the fact that you can see it means that there's that transparency in supply chain. So maybe a farmer could sell their steak for $1 or $2 more a pound to a restaurant, and then it'll make people feel better when they buy it on a menu or if they buy it directly from that farm.
It's alive. I mean, that's what we've preached. I mean, I don't get as much hate now, but early on I got a ton of hate. And the ones that are against hunting because of vegan and vegetarian, that's a whole nother conversation. But the people that were against killing or hunting because there's plenty of meat at the store or whatever. You're just like, what? It blew my mind. So, but I think that's awesome. The full transparency. You don't see the animal on the hoof. The animal had a life versus, it just being stuck in a feedlot.
And everyone I know, it's not a moment that when, the lights go out on an animal, it's not a moment that people are generally happy to see.
No. There is a little bit of remorse to it.
That's exactly it. And there's a sadness around it and everything. There's grateful, there's gratitude, for the animal and its life. And you want to, do right by them by ensuring that they live the best life possible. Yeah. And so for me, these are the things that, as I've shifted, like build like humanity depends on it. Like I really want to build as many different systems that hopefully like my kids have a better world to grow up in. Whereas like I feel like I've extracted a lot of value over the last 2 decades. It's my duty to try to figure out how to realign incentives in some way, shape, or form. So. Thank you,
man. I appreciate you coming out.
I cannot thank you enough.
Yeah,
this is fantastic.
We can just try to out-thank each other right now.
Thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you.
We're like gratitude. We're like in a Canadian standoff. Sorry.
Sorry. Heck yeah. That'd be, man, appreciate it. Welcome back anytime. We got to get you on a hunt.
Sweet. I very much appreciate it.
Instead of the camera, right, Scott?
Let's do it.
Sweet.